Hello and welcome to another tips and tricks video. This time we're talking about Mythic Trilliax in the Nighthold. Now this is one of those boss fights where individual play can really shine, and also if you have decently set up UI as a raid leader, it's going to make a huge difference in actually being able to call out stuff. The fight itself is not actually too difficult, however it gets very tricky if you're a little bit too slow on the ad. So as long as you kill the first ad quickly, the boss will die, more or less. I think one of the most important things that every single raid member should focus on is making sure that you pick up the green cakes as fast as you can, so Toxic Slice. Because that ability kind of has a domino effect, so the longer the cake stays up, the higher chance that it will fuck up the rest of your fight. So it's really important that you pick them up as soon as they possibly can, because that way the timers won't overlap and you will always have people available to pick up cakes. Because if you let them stay up for too long, not only will they kill you eventually, but they will also you will have a point where no one will be able to pick up any more cakes. You can see here on my raid frames that as a raid leader I can keep track of how long the debuff people still have before they can pick up new cakes, which allows me to individually call out people's names when new cakes are coming up, that they should be the ones picking them up. This is not mostly necessary in better guilds, but basically in any guild that is not the very top end, you will find that people will be focusing more on damage rather than focusing on their tasks. This can prevent quite a lot of wipes by assigning individual responsibility to people on the fly, because you can see that they don't have a debuff and you know that they can pick the stuff up. Now, here it's up to the raid leader to be smart enough to make sure that you call out people based on their positions, right? You don't want to call out for a melee to pick up a cake if there's no cake near the melee and so on. Now, one of the abilities that will most likely wipe you most of the times here is the Cleansing Rage. This only affects you if you haven't picked up the cakes. Now, both good and the bad cakes count for this, so you have to make sure that all the cakes are picked up. Aside from that, what also causes quite a few wipes on occasion is that if you buff the scrubbers for too long. Now obviously you want to buff the scrubbers as much as possible so they remove as much goo as possible from the raid group, but ultimately you want to find a balance between keeping the scrubbers alive long enough to clean up enough shit so it doesn't bother you for the rest of the fight, and getting them down fast enough so that they don't overlap with other nasty abilities, which ultimately means that you want to have the scrubbers gone by the time Annihilation goes out. If that doesn't happen for whatever reason, then you might want to call out for a mage or a holy paladin or anyone with an immunity to go pick up the thing while they have the immunity ups, because that way they won't die from Annihilation when it's happening at the same time. Now, one thing that we wiped to a couple of times was during the Annihilation that you can see on the video right now. He would act really oddly and basically keep following the tank while the tank was moving rather than jumping in position and turning, which then, made him fire laser beam in a really awkward direction and killing a couple of people. You can prevent that bug from happening. Well, it's not really a bug, but basically you can prevent that from happening by making sure none of the tanks taunt while he's starting Annihilation, because if you taunt, he will still follow the last threat target visually, but not actually fire the laser beam into the direction where he's facing, which can be quite a problem, as you can imagine. Now, one of the most important things to remember here is really that the DPS doesn't matter that much, and neither does the healing. It's not overly difficult to keep up with the timers and making sure that the boss dies, but it can very easily go to shit if the scrubbers aren't soaked when they're about to explode, which is why it's kinda really important that the range are spread out and staying fairly close to the scrubbers at all times. That way, they will always be able to be jumped upon when necessary. And this is where the individual play really comes out, where good players will, adhere to your wishes and make sure that they are actually picked up on time. Now, at this point, I have to tell you upfront that you will generally have a problem with the melee. Melee will be tunneling the boss a lot more than the ranged DPS will here, and they will forget that robots are there, they will forget that cakes are there, and they will try to, take as little responsibility as possible here unless you actually keep bugging them about it until they will, learn to accept the responsibility and understand that it's also their job to jump on shit and to eat cakes. Now let's talk about the ad for just a moment. Around 2 minutes 30 into the fight, the ad will come from the gate, and basically your job is to kill it as fast as you possibly can, like ideally now. As soon as it's up, you have like 30 seconds to kill it. If you manage that, your fight will get significantly easier. In this particular video we didn't manage. You'll see that we were about 4 seconds too late, as it managed to get the second cast of the Toxic Slice out. But if you manage to do it, your fight is gonna get really easy because you're gonna have 7 less cakes to pick up. Now, in order to actually make the timer, you can try using Heroism second pots and making sure that the ad is actually brought into the melee group since they are the ones who are gonna do most damage on it. We decided we didn't really need Heroism for it, but it's up to you how you decide to do it. It's just there are less chances that you will be overwhelmed by the boss fight if you manage to kill the imprint before the second Toxic Slice. Now if towards the end you see that there's a lot of shit on the floor, don't worry about it too much, just try not to stand in it if you have a choice not to. Uh, the only time when this can be a problem is during the annihilation, but that's when you really want your paladins to use Devotion Aura or, Trank on the Run from druids, or basically personal cooldowns, anything just to survive the annihilation, because the floor stuff doesn't actually hurt too much if you do it semi-decently. Also, don't kill the second ad that comes out, just make sure that you spell steal or purge the shit that it gets, but other than that, ignore it and you have a kill.